Hey there, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I am joined by Jason Rahm today, fellow community evangelist with the F5 DevCentral team. And we have on guest Kevin Jones, who is a senior product manager with our NGINX group here at F5. And he's also kind of our resident expert when it comes to crypto. You may have seen some videos that we've done with him before around blockchain and Web3 development as well. So thanks, Kevin, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. And we are going to be talking about this new change that's happened with Ethereum, and they've moved on from different validation methods. So why don't we give you the floor for a second and kind of talk us through the changes that are happening and, what's at stake?
That's a great way to transition there. What's at stake? So that's exactly what's changing is we're going into a new era of Ethereum, and they're moving the consensus algorithm to proof of stake. So you might be asking, like, what is the consensus algorithm? So in a blockchain-based network, right, you have this concept of nodes, and all of the nodes are operating kind of independently. You don't have this kind of centralized operator, right? So all of the nodes have to kind of come into a consensus in some way or another. For Bitcoin and for Ethereum currently, it's using proof of work, which is kind of this method where all of the nodes are competing to take these transactions that are put into the network, and they're trying to compete on who's going to validate them using a specific algorithm called proof of work. And it's basically like a mathematical puzzle. They're all trying to use resources, whether it's GPUs for Ethereum or if you're using ASICs and GPU power for Bitcoin, and they're trying to solve this puzzle. And the first person to solve it gets a reward to secure the network. And basically the transition now for Ethereum is they're moving to proof of stake, which is this new way of validating transactions where there are no miners, in the sense that the miners are not competing to validate transactions. And instead, validators are people that put up a little bit of stake. Basically, they put up a amount of crypto as stake into kind of like a security deposit. And they're in charge of validating these transactions, and they're picked at random. And so this is way more energy efficient because it doesn't require this kind of competitive work on the GPUs and the ASICs. And so what you're left with is this kind of about 99.6% less power being used by the network consensus algorithm.
That
Yeah,
is what they would say significant. That's a significant reduction.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
That's one of the criticisms, I guess. So we have like Bitcoin and Ethereum miners and all this compute power going in, and there has been some criticism around crypto when it comes to energy consumption.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I'm not going to say I particularly think it's bad proof of work in the sense, because I think that for what Bitcoin is as this kind of like store of value where you're actually locking up large amounts of funds, it's very slow transaction times. It takes about 10 minutes to validate a transaction. It makes it more difficult to attack, so it's a little bit more secure in the proof of work mechanism. But proof of stake, for something like Ethereum, where it's supposed to be the gateway of Web3, and the gateway of this new decentralized way to operate an application, you need faster transactions, right? You need, if you're somewhere and you want to buy something in the future that maybe they take Ethereum, you don't want to wait 10 minutes. And so you would use something that's quicker. And Ethereum right now is about a 15-second transaction time, but the proof of stake change will actually make it even faster for connections. I think Vitalik said that at some point in the near future, after all of the kind of merges happen, there's more than just the merge, there's the splurge, and there's some other things that are going to happen to the network that are going to make it so you can, the Ethereum can do about, on the entire network, can do about 100,000 transactions per second, which is dramatically faster than Bitcoin.
Wow.
I guess that's why you can buy a Maserati with Bitcoin and not, the target checkout line. A 10-minute transaction, that would be chaos.
Yeah, and for Bitcoin, there are what they call layer twos. So there's the Lightning Network, which combats that, whereas you do these kind of like off-chain kind of pools of money where you can settle off layer for these larger kind of transactions, or smaller transactions, I should say. So if I want to send if I want to send you like $1,000, right, I could do that on a Bitcoin transaction on the mainnet. But if I was just sending you $5 for some money that I owed you, or I don't know, you bought me a soda at work or something like that, that might be something you can put into the layer two. Lightning Network. And so Ethereum is kind of right now, like I said, it's about a 15-second kind of transaction time. That's going to go down even more. I think that's going to help the scalability of the network in that sense.
So speaking of scale, I mean, there's these big crypto mining farms that are out there, and this is probably changing the game for them. Like, what happens to these huge farms that are being built out just focusing on mining Ethereum?
Yeah, I think GPUs are about to get a lot cheaper right now, right? For a long time, GPUs, I don't know if you guys remember, but GPUs prices skyrocketed. And so, yeah, I think, there's still some other, ways you can still technically can mine Bitcoin with a GPU, but it's not as efficient. They have the ASICs, which are kind of dedicated units for mining Bitcoin. So it's interesting. There's even been some talk of like a side chain that might come out of this merge, where maybe there's this kind of like another version of Ethereum that stays proof of work, and then you have this new chain that is the proof of stake chain. There's been talk of that. I don't think that's going to work out too well, but we'll see what happens with all of this hardware that's going to be kind of suddenly deprecated. Even myself, I have one here. I guess I'm gonna have to start gaming again.
How's the transition like that work? I know I was reading one article and they said, well, we're gonna start the merge sometime now, and then it's gonna be like in the course of like 14 days or something like that. What does that do to the network, a transition that slow?
Yeah, well, so just like any kind of major application upgrade, we have test nets on Ethereum, right? So they've gone through and they've run the upgrade on the test nets. They pretty much finished the last test net a couple of weeks ago. I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. It was successful. Basically, they've prepared the network. You can think of the Ethereum network as kind of 2 layers at this point. There's the consensus layer, and then there's the execution layer, which is like the EVM. And this the execution layer has been upgraded at this point, and this consensus layer has been slowly kind of being able to be worked as proof of stake. And so that's why if you buy some crypto on Coinbase, or if you want to, you can actually stake your crypto now into this consensus layer. And what's going to happen is there's this, not to get too technical, but there's what's called the TTD, which is it's basically a difficulty bomb that's going to hit. And when that difficulty bomb happens, it's basically going to transition. The next block that happens is going to need to be validated with proof of stake. So they've kind of laid all the groundwork and the upgrades for the binary, the actual Ethereum virtual machine binary. So like the clients that are out there, and those are upgraded and ready to go. And so what's going to happen is uncontrollably, we don't know when it's going to hit. They say right now it's around the 13th to the 14th. That total difficulty, the TTD, is going to reach its goal, and it's kind of like this like last moment before you can do any proof of work on the network, and then everything is going to switch over to proof of stake, and everything after that will have to be proof of stake validated with validators.
Gotcha. That's cool. It's almost like that process was thought through.
Yeah. Vitalik and the rest of the Ethereum Foundation developers, I have to give it to them, because it's a massive upgrade. To completely change the consensus algorithm for a blockchain as big as Ethereum is a pretty crazy feat. So, yeah, excited.
Hey, there's a lot at stake.
There's a lot at stake. Yes.
So I guess thinking through all of this now. With a change like this, do you lose anything? Like, because we're moving from one to the other, do you think there's anything that's at risk from moving over to proof of stake?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you talk to some like hardcore Bitcoiners, or what they call Bitcoin maxis, they would say like, oh, proof of work is really the only way that makes sense. Proof of work was actually created in the early 90s of the internet to fight email spam. And when Satoshi Nakamoto created it into Bitcoin, it was kind of this, interesting way where like you have to prove some kind of mathematical work that you're doing to secure the network. And I think it's survived this entire time. It's never been attacked. There's really this only one idea where like what's called the 51% attack, where like if you could get up enough power or ASICs or GPUs combined to take over 51% of the network, you could propose some kind of fraudulent transactions and take over the network. But that's pretty much impossible with proof of work. And some people say that with proof of stake, maybe there's a more of a chance that a large entity could acquire more than 51% of the stake as well and control transactions as well. So I think it's actually kind of a toss-up that's worth it because of the energy consumption and because of the goals of Ethereum and what Ethereum is supposed to be. And so there's, time will tell, but I think from a security perspective, it's very similar. You do get some benefits though in the proof of stake, which, with Bitcoin or, Bitcoin has a mining reward that you get if you solve this puzzle, right? Right now, same thing goes kind of with Ethereum, but it's more of you get a reward for validating the first transaction, but then they also send some rewards to the people that verify those transactions as well. So it's kind of more of a distributed model. But after the consensus layer is moved to proof of stake, there won't be any more mining rewards on Ethereum. So what that's going to do is actually make the asset deflationary. So there'll be less Ethereum to get, right? You can't mine it anymore. So the only way you can get it is by offering a service, selling something for Ethereum, or acquiring it through the network. So I think that's enough. Those two things, right? The energy consumption and the deflationary model are enough to make it worth it in that sense. But again, it's up for debate in that sense.
Do you see that 51% issue more of a theoretical risk than a practical risk? I mean, just kind of the same as proof of work, right? I mean, it's technically possible, but pragmatically, that's never going to happen.
To give it scale, like what's the total market value we're talking about here to have 51%?
Oh, I don't know what the current market cap is for Ethereum, but it's lots, right? It's hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Actually, I think it might even be billions at this point, right? I think it's billions. So I don't think it makes sense in that regard that it would be a security issue. I mean, the chance of someone acquiring that much stake of Ethereum I don't see it happening. Now there is some things about like proof of stake where like if you have more stake in your validator, then you have more of a chance of being rewarded the transaction fees. So essentially that could make the validator richer because they're the person that gets chosen, even though it is random. So in other words, like if Boo, if you were to host a validator and you put $100, but I put 1,000, I would have 10 times more of a chance of getting randomly selected to validate those transactions. So there is some kind of, things there where like maybe based on the amount that a particular staker had, they would be able to acquire more of the Ethereum over time, right? Because they can have stake. And so that's where I think we see a lot of the centralization. And we also see that, exchanges are offering staking, and staking pools are acquiring crypto to stake as a collected kind of goal. And so that also can take away from the decentralization. But again, I don't think it's enough to where it's like, oh my gosh, like Coinbase is going to take 51% of the stake and then take over the network. It doesn't make sense. They wouldn't. I don't think you would be incentivized to do that because you would degrade the network. And so all of the work that you've done to acquire that stake is really for nothing if you're just going to break down the network, right? Same thing with proof of work, right? If you were to take 50% of and spend so much energy to try to take over the network, another chain could spin off and just say, well, we don't want to include that anymore, and this is the new Bitcoin chain, and it would be all a waste, right?
Interesting.
And that's why the consensus algorithms are so powerful, and I think both have their equal value.
And maybe for so let's say you're a common person, and you're into crypto a bit and you have your amount of Ethereum. What's the play for you? Like you have some that are used for your stake and then some you've set off to the side to use for your transactions, you're exchanging NFTs and whatnot, or what do you picture a typical person doing after this change?
Yeah, I mean, depending on where you are in your journey on crypto, right? If you're heavy into crypto and you've been in it for a while, maybe you have a large stake. There is a limit to what you can stake. So I think the limit is 32 ETH. So you have to stake at least 32 ETH to become a validator. At least that's what it is right now. So I think you wouldn't want to maybe stake more than that. You would probably want to put some away into a secure location. So the most common way to do that is to put it in a multi-signature contract. So you basically create like a smart contract that holds all the value, and it requires multiple keys to sign that. So there's a popular company called Gnosis Safe. I should say they're not a company. It's an open source project, and they're a DAO actually. And you can hold your funds there in kind of like just a lockbox, right? You can think of it a lockbox, and then you can secure that so that it's not hackable, because you would need to sign the transaction to get it out. So maybe you want to be a validator and you want to gain some transaction fees, and then you might store some in your Gnosis safe, and then you also might store some in your wallet on your phone as well to use on a daily basis. Maybe you want to buy an NFT, or you want to transact on a decentralized application over Web3, then you might do that.
So whether it's stocks and bonds or crypto, you're diversifying your portfolio, right?
Exactly, yeah. And there's other things like DeFi, right? You've probably heard the term DeFi, decentralized finance. There's lots of other ways that you can make money aside from just staking and secure the network. So you can put your money into something like Rocket Pool, which is a way to kind of gain interest on your Ethereum, or you might put it into some other crypto that's like an ERC20 that you think is providing some utility, like the Graph, like the shirt I'm wearing, the Graph protocol, which is an Ethereum token based on Ethereum. So you might find other ways, and that, yes, you're exactly right. Decentralizing your portfolio is suggested.
Yeah, interesting. Like having some stocks sitting in, dividend type stocks that are just going to pay you out a little bit over time. And when you say transaction fees, like, are you talking about gas fees at that point, or where's my terminology wrong here?
Yeah. So, right now the way it works is you have to pay some gas when you send a transaction. So depending on what you're trying to do, if you're trying to update a state of a contract, like maybe you're trying to change some information on the blockchain, you have to pay a little bit of gas to execute that transaction, right? And so I think with Ethereum, the new kind of merge is, that those gas fees that you would normally pay to do, whatever X processing power would be a certain percentage of that. That the staker would get, essentially, right? So they would be able to kind of gain from that. Obviously, your computer still needs to do some work, so there's probably going to be a certain, and I don't know the specifics of how much percentage or what would be rewarded. But yeah, obviously there still needs to be some kind of reimbursement there. But yeah, the gas is essentially what powers the Ethereum network, right?
Yeah, this entire crypto landscape is fascinating to me. It's like I hear you speaking English words, and it's like I don't understand what you're talking about. So it's like, even I'll go out and read, and I think I have an understanding of it. So, and then it's like I still don't get it. And so
it's a little bit of a rabbit hole, it's one of those things where you kind of need to immerse yourself a little bit into it. There's just so much going on, right, in the industry as well. There's just so many different protocols, and there's so many different cryptos out there that it can be kind of a little bit hard to kind of navigate. But yeah, it's an interesting concept, right? And I think that the most important thing is that Ethereum and this concept of like decentralized applications aims to solve a lot of problems for certain types of applications, for peer-to-peer economy, right? Being able to transfer funds directly without having going to a third party like a bank or something like that. And so I think all that stuff that kind of Ethereum is good at, or I should say some of the cryptos are good at, is what's most important, right?
So for the me's of the world who kind of sit on the outside of crypto, do you have some resources that you recommend people like dive into to just kind of get their heads around?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a good start for, like, if you want to learn about Ethereum, right, per se, is just to go to the Ethereum Foundation website, and there's a good avenue there for you just to kind of learn about kind of what Ethereum is, like talks about decentralization, permissionless apps, being able to, privacy, holding your own keys, holding your own data, and kind of just talks about like a little bit of what Ethereum stands for and how to build kind of decentralized applications is kind of a layer below that. So if you're a developer and you want to get started building on Ethereum and you want to build decentralized applications, then I would look into like Solidity. And I always point people to Solidity by Example, which is a great resource for learning how the code works. And then if you actually want to start building your own applications, you can look at Speedrun Ethereum. And it's basically a kind of like a walkthrough that walks you through deploying an application on a local host on your machine using a simulated blockchain. So you can simulate the blockchain on your machine and you can write your code in Solidity. It even comes with like a kind of a hello world contract for you to start with, and it comes with React. It comes with everything you need to basically build on what's called scaffolding and go through some challenges on building on Ethereum. And you learn things like how to deploy an NFT, or how to build a DEX, or how to build a staking app, or things like that. And it actually goes you through and walks you through that process. And then, you know, when it
And we
comes
did
to
a demo of that last time, right?
yeah, that was
Yeah,
the
cool.
that was the walkthrough I did, and that's a great start. And then there's also, like, I would look into getting like certifications. I don't know if you guys have heard of C4, the Crypto Consortium. That has a couple certifications. There's Certified Ethereum Professional, which I am, and the Certified Bitcoin Professional, which I am as well. And those will get you up and running. If you can learn that content that is part of those certifications, I think that's going to be a perfect kind of core start for you as well, because it's going to give you all of the base understanding of what Bitcoin is, the history, how it works, and then also Ethereum and how that works. And also you can get a copy of Mastering Ethereum online for free as well. So if you just search Mastering Ethereum, it's a book that's written by Andrea Andronopoulos, I think his name is, that goes into how Ethereum works under the hood as well, and that's free.
I think that is a great point to wrap things up. We've got a lot of folks, some resources that they can check out if they want to explore this more. As Jason mentioned, we have another video that we've done with you, Kevin, actually walking through some of this Web3 development. So it was great having you on again, and I think we'll be continuing to speak to you in the future as all of this stuff develops. So absolutely fantastic to have a resource like this at our fingertips.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome.
For sure. Always a pleasure.
Thanks a lot, folks.
See ya.